All right, so we've got a number of videos to talk about when it comes to the and these were things that people would try to bring up, and you weren't allowed to bring it up, and now even some of the CDC people are now bringing up things that people were saying, well, we're looking at your numbers here. Mm-hmm. And you remember they would say something else, and we'd be like, well, we're looking at your number. So here is it Walensky? Is that how you say her name? Here is Rochelle Walensky from the CDC, who now is gone from trying to terrify us when it comes to the death rate with COVID. She's now coming back to kind of reassure, unless you have, comorbidities. That's not good news. Mm-mm. But, at one time it was going to kill us all, especially the children. And now here she is kind of saying, well, I mean, if you look at the deaths, and here she is in her own words.
The overwhelming number of deaths, over 75%, occurred in people who had at least 4 comorbidities. So really, these are people who were unwell to begin with. And yes, really encouraging news in the context of Omicron.
And she's saying this, it's not as severe. But now she's walking back and said, well, I mean, if you look back, 75% of the people had, as many as 4 comorbidities. Do you remember when we were all saying that? Hey, you are not allowed to say that.
Right. Well, Rick, I think what happened, they got into this mode where they were trying to scare everybody.
Well, yeah.
1, to try to get Trump out. 2, to try to push the vaccine, big pharma issues. Yep. And they kind of got in that mold, and now I think they're getting the memo, hey, we said we were going to cure COVID. We were going to stop it in its tracks. Everybody's playing those clips now. We have a midterm coming up. Hey, this thing's got to be getting better. It's killing us politically.
That's how it feels.
It's got that feel.
Yeah, that's how it feels.
But don't you think that they're kind of fighting themselves because of what she just said? But also, aren't they trying to kind of extend this to the 2022 election midterms, where they can use COVID as an excuse that we need to do mail-in voting again?
I know you got that. Yeah, they're caught in a dilemma because you're right, Speedy. On one hand, they want to do the mail-in voting again, but if they talk about that it's too bad, they're making President Biden look bad.
Right. Yeah, they're
which could also hurt them at the midterm.
They're really hung in a position where maybe you should just go with the truth.
Right.
Yeah, and let the fallout fall where it may.
Now, she took a shot at, with the Supreme Court justices who were talking about these mandates. Now, and who was it that she took?
It was Brett Baer. He actually asked the question because Justice Sotomayor, in the verbal arguments the other day about the mandates and the vaccine mandates and mandates for healthcare workers, Justice Sotomayor threw out some crazy figure, and I don't remember what it was, that like 100,000 kids are sick now. So why aren't we doing everything we can to stop this virus?
Right. And
by the way, that has nothing to do with what the legality of it is.
So Brett Baer says you want to take that on for everybody and kind of correct this comment made by one of our Supreme Court justices?
Data, ages 15 to 24, for example, the risk of death is at 0.001%. I guess what I'm getting at in this opening is that the Supreme Court is in the process of dealing with this big issue about mandates. And do you feel a responsibility as a CDC director to correct a very big mischaracterization by one of the Supreme Court justices?
Yeah, here's what I'll tell you. I'll tell you that right now, if you're unvaccinated, you're 17 times more likely to be in the hospital and 20 times more likely to die than if you're boosted. And so what my responsibility is to provide guidance and recommendations to protect the American people.
So, no, I won't do that.
No, I'm not going to do it that way.
Yeah, I will not correct that statement. And, of course, this is the one you mentioned, Bubba. Everybody's playing this. In 2020, and this is where I think they do have the dilemma, Speedy, that you and Bubba just talked about. We need to terrify people still so we can do the mail-in voting. But if we talk about it being too tragic, everybody's going to keep playing this over and over again. And
it's not going to matter how much mail-in voting we have. We're going to get our butt kicked.
Right.
As I said before, I'll shut down the virus. COVID in the environment here and in the world is probably here to stay.
That's Joe Biden from 2020 and Joe Biden from 2022. Let's hear it one more time, Adam.
As I said before, I'll shut down the virus. COVID in the environment here and in the world is probably here to stay.
So what you have here is, and then we also had, while we were on vacation, which is part of that second clip, when the president now says, I was wrong in 2020, and he didn't say that. He should have said, look, in 2020, I thought there was a federal government solution to this, and there just isn't, but he didn't. Politicians come up as if they never said anything else other than what they're saying now.
Right.
And he said, hey, there is no federal government solution
Really?
to COVID.
Shocking, isn't it?
You remember when you would say that and everybody would just go nuts?
Let's hear the good doctor from CNN 7D, Rick.
Yeah, here comes Sanjay, is it Gupta or Gupta? Gupta, who is now about to give credit, you're not going to believe this, to President Trump's Operation Warp Speed.
You got to give Operation Warp Speed credit for making all these at-risk investments on vaccines and things like that. Haven't done that with regard to tests. We don't have enough still. Even masks. I mean, I got masks here, but a lot of people still don't have access to N95 and KN95 masks. And even therapeutics, Jake. I mean, there's a very effective therapeutic, this Paxlovid. It's a new protease inhibitor from Pfizer. Very effective. It's pretty clear that we don't have enough of that. 250,000 or so treatments. We may need a lot more. If we had made at-risk investments in something like that 6 months ago, right, we wouldn't be in a position where we may have to ration some of these important items.
See, that was what we said on the show a few days ago. He just said indirectly, if you had a Trump mindset on the treatments like Trump had on the vaccine, the federal government has proven they can get this stuff out and in the hands of the doctors who need to prescribe it pretty quick. Trump's administration was really good at that. The Biden administration, who now has been handed the baton of not the vaccines because the Trump administration handled that, they were given the baton on treatments. Now do a warp speed on the treatments that are being very effective. And you just heard the doctor on CNN say, and the Biden administration has not been very effective. And we said the other day on the show, it's because they got caught up in the vaccine people are as pure as the beautiful driven snow, and unvaccinated people are evil and they're killing people and they need to be eradicated. Why don't you get your vaccine? And while this is going on, great treatments are being developed that could treat everybody, including all of you that have our breakthrough patients who were vaccinated. And we dropped the ball on the treatments that are effective and could make this a lot less severe, but we didn't put our efforts into that to have enough supply for everybody. And he compared it to the way Trump handled it versus Biden.
And as a matter of fact, the federal government made it worse.
Yep.
We had Dr. Scott Harris, our state for Alabama, his the state health officer, and they used to buy the monoclonal antibodies direct from the manufacturers. The federal government stepped in and said, you'll get all that from us now. We're confiscating all that. We'll decide how many your state gets, how many everybody else gets. That was just another step, more bureaucracy, more paperwork that has slowed down the process of people getting these who really need them, and they are very effective.
Next, CNN will do his impression of Tucker Carlson. Jake Tapper will now talk about something we talked about a long time ago, as did many on Fox News. He's going to complain that we're 2 years into this and that hospitalization numbers have been misleading.
So the hospitals are still stretched thin because of this, so I'm not trying to take away from that. But if 40% in some hospitals, 40% of the people who have COVID don't necessarily have problematic COVID. They're there because they got in a car accident. They're there because, they bumped their head. And they're being included as in the hospital with COVID. That number seems kind of misleading.
Yeah, I agree, Jake. It surprises me that they have not been able to parse out that data more carefully. I think the data that Dr. Walensky is quoting is from New York State, and we've been following that data as well. And I can show you what we've seen, sort of tracks with what she said. But out of all the patients that are in the hospital, about 57%, these are COVID patients, admitted because of or complications from COVID, 43% admitted for other reasons and then diagnosed with COVID.
Good night. Now, we're up against the break, but there is a reason for that.
Yeah.
There's a simple reason for that. The hospital is getting more federal reimbursement if the patient is a COVID patient than if they have a normal illness and insurance is covered.
But to hear that on CNN,
I know.
because this concern was
They'll be
raised
taken off the air.
Right. So there you are. There's your COVID update. We'll be right back.